The international break is almost upon us, and for Middlesbrough, there's just one insignificant fixture separating us from a run of 5 victories in a row. Victory over Cardiff midweek meant that it was 4 wins in a row for Michael Carrick's side, and a trip to the Stadium of Light on Saturday to face Sunderland gives us the opportunity to cap off what has been a heck of a result of results in the last few weeks. One that's taken us away from the relegation zone, eased the pressure on Carrick, and taken us to within just one win of a 13th position in the table, which is a far cry from where we were just a couple of weeks ago. Of course, the match against Sunderland is going to be a tricky one. They're in absolutely brilliant form, and I think the match at the Stadium of Light is just going to be an absolutely exhilarating watch because both sides will be going hell for leather to try and get the victory, not just because it's a derby, but just because it's what both sides are genetically imposed to do at the moment. I'm going to go through it in a little bit of detail just now, but for now, if you are enjoying what you're seeing on the channel, then please do like the video and please do subscribe as well. We've got some very exciting stuff coming up over the international break, so you do not want to miss that. So please do hit subscribe and you'll be the first to hear about that. But obviously, first of all, we've got the other match against Sunderland. For Middlesbrough, there's really no reason to fear the Black Cats. I know Tony Mowbray's side go into the match in 4th position in the table. They're looking absolutely brilliant at the moment. Just looking at the table in front of me here, they've won 6 of their 10 games so far. They've scored 20 goals in the process and they've conceded just 8, which is the second best in the Championship this season, behind Leicester, who just look absolutely unstoppable. I think given just how young Sunderland's squad is, I think a few people thought that after reaching the playoffs last season, they might have a little bit of second season syndrome after getting promoted from League One. A few thought they might fall away or kind of like they might be figured out slightly by other clubs in the Championship, but that is absolutely not the case. They're looking absolutely brilliant going forward in particular. Some of their players have really stepped up this season. Last season was, I think the main headline attraction for them was Amad Diallo, who was on loan from Manchester United. He was the man who was grabbing all of the other headlines week in, week out, really. There was a lot of other players last season who were performing very, very well, the likes of Alex Pritchard, Jack Clark and various others. But this season it's Clark in particular who has really stepped up and is showing himself to probably be one of the best players in the Championship at the moment. The way that Sunderland play, it's fairly similar to how Michael Carrick's team play, to be honest. They love to get on the ball. They're a very real possession-based side. It's very much all-out attack. Attack is the best form of defence, that kind of philosophy. Something that's clearly working given that they've only conceded 8 times this season, so that's less than a goal a game that they've conceded, and they've played some really difficult teams already. I think at the Stadium of Light they will look to take the game to Middlesbrough, they will look to push forward, they will look to kind of expose what has over the course of the season been a bit of a frailty for Middlesbrough. Obviously we've conceded 17 goals in 10 matches. I know we've turned things around a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but that is still an area of weakness. There is still a feeling that Middlesbrough can be exposed with a good attack, and Sunderland certainly have that. We saw it against Watford last week, who had a pretty average attack, and they still managed to carve us open twice. I know we managed to hold firm against Cardiff, but I do think Tony Mowbray's side are going to pose a very different threat. And probably I'd be gearing up for what is going to be one of the toughest games of the season, particularly one of the toughest away days of the season. But for Middlesbrough, there's no reason to fear them. Middlesbrough coming into the match in a really good place, to be honest. We've mentioned about the 4 wins in a row, which is brilliant. It has done such wonders for morale in terms of getting those results on the board. It's kind of put those early season performances firmly to bed. As I said, it's eased the pressure on the manager, it's eased the pressure on the players as well. But I think the best part about it is that Middlesbrough have got, in my opinion, probably 15 or 16 players who are all going into this in good form. We've seen over the last couple of weeks that Michael Carrick has sort of settled on what you'd call a preferred 11. We've mentioned it in previous videos with the likes of Matt Crooks playing at number 10, Josh Coburn in attack. We've got the back 4 kind of like nailed down as well, although we do have a couple of injuries to contend with now. But what we're also seeing is that after he settled on this formula of largely tried and tested players in the Championship and players who were at the club last season, we're starting to see some of those new signings really start to find their feet as well, and that's really exciting for a lot of supporters to see. Obviously, Josh Coburn has been leading the line in attack. Emmanuel Latte-Lath was looking dangerous in the first few weeks of the season, but hadn't really been getting on the score sheet. That's changed in the last week or so. He got a much needed goal against Bradford City in the Carabao Cup, and that was great for him. A real confidence boost, but he was back on the bench last week against Watford, and Josh Coburn got his goal, so deservedly kept his place in the team against Cardiff. But Latte-Lath came on in the second half against Cardiff and showed exactly what he's all about, and my God, is he an exciting player. He is absolutely rapid. Seeing him, it was the first time that I'd seen him in the flesh myself this season, and just the pace and the tireless running, and he's just going to be such a handful. And he's almost the sort of player that when you look at it in terms of the course of 90 minutes, like, he sort of does at the moment suit the role of like an impact kind of sub. He's way better than that. He does deserve to be starting matches as well. I'm not being detrimental to him, but you can certainly see why he would come on and be really effective in that kind of game. Josh Coburn did really well against Cardiff once again. He didn't get a goal, but he did hold up the ball well. The way that he links up play with the midfielders, the way he holds it up in a kind of Mark Viduka style, back to goal, get the ball, play it down to a midfielder or spread it out to the wing, who can then get it into the box. That was really impressive, and particularly impressive for a player who's so young. But when Latte-Lath came on, he just posed a completely different threat to Cardiff's defence. The way he was closing them down, it led to a lot of different mistakes. His goal, which was just absolutely ridiculous, he knocked it around the defender, made up about 3 times as much distance as what the defender had to, took it round him. He looked like he'd slipped in the box, but then he showed the composure to dink it over the goalkeeper as well. So that kind of showed that he's not just he's not just a workhorse. He's not just someone who runs hard and fast and causes problems with that, but has no technical ability. He's clearly got the mental ability to hold firm under pressure, to keep his composure in those situations, and he's got the finishing ability to match up as well. So he's looked really dangerous in the last couple of weeks. Whether he'll start against Sunderland, I'm not entirely sure. I do think that he would cause a lot of problems. I guess it also depends on Josh Coburn as well. He's started a lot of matches recently, deservedly so, and in my opinion, I think Josh Coburn does deserve to start again against Sunderland. But given just how many players Middlesbrough have got in form at the moment, it's a really nice problem for Michael Carrick to have, that ability to shuffle things around without really weakening the team. And whether it's that Josh Coburn starts an attack and Latte-Lath comes on as a sub again and puts Sunderland under pressure, whether it's Latte-Lath who starts this time and Coburn's on the bench to give him a little bit of a breather, or maybe even he might start both of them. Latte-Lath can play a little bit deeper in that number 10 role, which could be interesting to see whether the two of them play. I'd be surprised if we played 2, I guess, out-and-out strikers away against Sunderland, because that could be a dangerous thing to do, given that there's going to be a little bit of an inclination to tighten things up to nullify their threat. But it's going to be really interesting to see what Michael Carrick does with that. I mentioned it there about the number 10 role as well, and that's another big decision that Michael Carrick's going to have to make, because Matt Crooks has been a big player in that role in the last couple of weeks. He's been part of that starting 11 who sort of stopped the rot this season, and he's been reliable, and against Watford he was absolutely brilliant last week. But then he dropped out the starting. I say drop. That's not the right word. He was moved out the starting 11 to face Cardiff. Obviously, Michael Carrick's wanting to shuffle the pack, and he wanted to give Sam Greenwood an opportunity from the start, because let's be honest, Matt Crooks has kind of made that role his own in the last couple of weeks. But Sam Greenwood looked excellent as well in that position midweek. It took a little while for him to warm up over the course of the 90 minutes, but he's just got such good control. He's got the ability to drop into those spaces in the number 10 sort of role. And what was really kind of exciting to see was the way that him and Riley McGree sort of interchanged roles a little bit. Obviously, Riley McGree plays out on the left. Sam Greenwood was in the number 10 kind of role, but Riley McGree's instinct is to drop into those central areas, and so they were able to kind of interchange with each other. Greenwood was able to drift out to the left while McGree came into the centre. They were able to, one would drop deep, one would go forward and play off the shoulder of Josh Coburn, and it was just really exciting, and there was a number of real options there. And it's not about who's better between Greenwood and who's between him and Crooks. It's just kind of a case of Greenwood offering something that's very, very different. In my opinion, I think Greenwood has all the qualities to be a starting 11 player for Middlesbrough, and I think once he's fully up to speed. I do expect him to be there. Whether he'll keep his place again on Saturday against Sunderland remains to be seen, because I think Matt Crooks will be well in contention given that he didn't start against Cardiff. But that's another really big decision for Michael Carrick to make, and just kind of working through in no particular order here. I think it was also great against Cardiff to see how well Lucas Engel did in that match as well. He had a horror show against Sheffield Wednesday a couple of weeks ago. A lot of fans on social media were kind of writing him off and saying that he's rubbish and he shouldn't be playing. And obviously Lewis O'Brien came in and did a great job at left back. Lewis O'Brien is now, it's been confirmed that he's going to be out for maybe 2 or 3 months, which is a massive blow given just how good a player he is, like how good he was at left back, but also more importantly the fact that he's a top quality central midfielder who would undoubtedly improve our team by being in it. But it's also kind of come at quite a good time for Engel and Alex Bangura as well, to be honest, because O'Brien's injury has happened at a time when Middlesbrough results have turned round. Confidence in the team is higher. Confidence in the stands is also higher. So there's not as much tension on the match day. There's not as much kind of worry when players are getting the ball. There's not worry about, oh God, what happens if we lose this game? That's sort of disappeared. And I think that kind of anxiety was what was kind of making it a bit tricky for Engel. And I think Sheffield Wednesday away was a really cagey encounter in one way. It was just, you could just feel the palpable tension around the stadium from two teams who weren't doing well and were dreading the thought of losing another match. That didn't help him at all. He looked nervous, he looked scared, he was caught out on many occasions, and he ended up getting hooked at half time. He sat out a couple of matches, but coming in against Cardiff on Tuesday, obviously Middlesbrough were there on the back of 3 wins. Fans were happy and looking forward to the match. The team were playing with confidence. It was the perfect time to bring him back in, and what we saw was a player who was playing what we think is his natural game. I didn't know much about him before he signed for Middlesbrough, but I did watch a video that the Boro Breakdown podcast did on him. They did a bit of research into him and spoke to people who knew him from his time before coming to Middlesbrough. And his natural game is getting forward. He wasn't doing that against Sheffield Wednesday. He wasn't doing that in the other games. It was very much a defensive fullback. He was sat back to nullify the threat of the opposition, and that's just not his game. It didn't really work for him in the same way that it wouldn't have worked last season for Ryan Giles. That wasn't his game either. He was a pretty average, if not poor, defender, Ryan Giles. But what he did so well was going forward. And I think what we saw against Cardiff was the fact that Engel may be a similar sort of player. Not drawing comparisons in terms of ability or output and what's going to happen over the course of the season, but he was desperate to get forward. He was screaming for the ball in the first half. Fans were, I was sat in the East Stand, and fans were getting pretty frustrated at Paddy McNair because every time he got the ball, Engel was screaming for it on the touchline and wanting it and trying to drive forward, and he just wasn't seeing him whatsoever. And fans were getting very frustrated, but as soon as they did start seeing him, he was making those runs in behind. Hayden Hackney played in a couple of excellent threaded balls into him, and Engel was another player who kind of like he warmed up as that match kind of unfolded, and he got his assist in the second half. It was a clean sheet for Middlesbrough. He got brought off and he got a big ovation from the fans who were so pleased to see him do well. And it was a brilliant opportunity for him to get that win under his belt, get a good positive performance under his belt in front of the home fans as well. And now I'll be hoping that we can see Engel kick on really, in terms of the weeks ahead, and kind of make that left back spot his own. Alex Bangura, he came back from injury against Cardiff as well. He didn't really have much opportunity to do much, so it'll be interesting to see what opportunity he gets over the coming weeks. Given that he's just come back from injury, I'd be surprised if he started against Sunderland. But again, he might come off the bench. Gives him an opportunity to show what he can do. And then we've got the international break, which is 2 weeks for him and several other players to build up their fitness before we break into that next kind of cluster of games. So yeah, I think for Middlesbrough it's a good time to play Sunderland. Confidence is high. We've got a lot of players who are in good form, coming off the back of good performances, and you'd almost kind of argue that there's in Michael Carrick's team there's not really any players who wouldn't be deserving of a spot in that starting 11 right now. Everyone's played well in the last couple of weeks, and unlike maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think everyone would trust the decision that Michael Carrick makes. Whatever 11 he names against Sunderland, you'd be backing him and backing those players to put in a good performance. Whether it's going to be enough to get a victory over Sunderland remains to be seen, because as I said, I do think a trip to Sunderland will certainly be the toughest match that Middlesbrough played this season, and may actually end up being the toughest match that we play all season. But I think going there is a big opportunity to get a win. I do think Sunderland can be got at. I do think they're beatable, but at the same time, I think Sunderland are very much favourites, and so I think Middlesbrough have nothing really to fear. But if we do get a win, it'll move us up towards mid-table, and what a turnaround that'll be for the club, considering where we were a month ago, or 2 or 3 weeks ago even. Things were looking really dire as we were rooted in the relegation zone. But I think a victory or a point, or being honest, even if we don't get the win against Sunderland, I think it's been a great few weeks, one that's turned things around, restored confidence in the club, and I think every supporter, I don't think anyone's taken it for granted that about challenging for promotion or getting into the playoffs or anything like that. But I think many fans will be very surprised if we're not kind of slowly but moving our way up that table. I personally would be very surprised if, based on how we've performed in the last couple of weeks, how Michael Carrick's done, how the new players have sort of adapted. I'd be very surprised if we weren't pushing towards that top 10 by the time we get into December and towards Christmas as well. It doesn't mean that we'll necessarily get the win against Sunderland, but I think it's a great time to play them. I think we're full of confidence. I think they're full of confidence, and I think ultimately it's going to be a heck of a game, because both teams are going to be going all-out attack to try and get a win. It might end up being a bloody 4-4 or something ridiculous like that, but I think it's going to be a great game to tune into. And yeah, be sure to tune back into the channel after that match for my reaction to it. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some talking points, because there always is. There's going to be lots of goals, I imagine, and there's always drama, because it's a Tees-Weir derby, so why wouldn't there be? Yeah, but that kind of leads us into the Sunderland match. Yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. As I mentioned, I've got something really exciting lined up for you for the first couple of days of the international break, so please do stay tuned for that. It's something completely different to what I've done so far on this channel. It'll definitely be worth tuning into, so please do hit subscribe and you'll be the first to hear about that. But in the meantime, good luck to Middlesbrough. Here's hoping for a positive result against that lot up the A19, and fingers crossed for another 3 points for what will be a 5th win in a row. Can you imagine? Let's see. Catch you later.